On the Strong Women podcast today, we have Lydia and Jennifer Booth with us. And Lydia is 9 and is in 3rd grade. And then her mother is Jennifer, and I will not disclose her age. But Lydia and her family live in a small town outside of Jackson, Mississippi. So Lydia and Jennifer's story really launched during COVID. And let me tell you just a little sneak peek about why we're having them on, but I'm going to let them do the majority of the storytelling. But COVID has been weird for all of us, and it was weird for Lydia and her classmates too in 3rd grade in Mississippi. And so they decided to have some fun with wearing their masks, and, kids would come in with sports logos and, like Ole Miss and I'm sure Mississippi State and all, those kind of things like kids will do. And then also some popular slogans like Black Lives Matter and things like that. And Lydia joined in on that fun, and she wanted to give a message that she finds comfort in and she wanted others to know about. And she came in with a mask that says, "Jesus loves me." Seems simple, but it drastically changed their lives this past year and introduced them to a whole new set of friends at Alliance Defending Freedom, which we adore that organization as well. And so, but I want them to tell the story, so I'm going to stop my storytelling part right here and introduce you to Lydia and Jennifer.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, so ladies, we would love to to start your story. Lydia, maybe you can tell us about the town that you live in, and maybe even about the home that you live in, because I know you have animals, and that it's an interesting home that you have there in Mississippi. So can you tell us, Lydia, about your home and your town?
Well, we have a small farm, and I have 2 siblings. I have 2 brothers, a little brother and a big brother. My little brother's name is Roman, and my big brother's name is Hunter.
Okay, and so you live on a little farm. So can you just, for those of us who don't live on farms, can you tell us a little bit about your home? What kind of animals do you guys have?
We have cows, goats, chickens. We have 3 lizards and a turtle. And we used to have a pig, but he's now in the refrigerator.
Oh, dear. Wait, and was this Bacon? Like, I've heard about Bacon. Is this your pig, Bacon? Oh, and now he actually
yes,
is
ma'am.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
great.
Okay, so you don't sound too heartbroken that your pig is now in your refrigerator. Now, I do not live on a farm, and I did not grow up on a farm. So how do you feel about the animals on your farm? Like, are there some of your goats that you love and you're attached to, or are they all just kind of a part of the farm life? So, Lydia, how is that?
With Corona, I haven't made bunches of friends because of COVID at school, and with animals, it makes it really interesting and fun to have.
Yeah, I bet. So, Jennifer, I grew up in Mississippi too, so I feel like I need to just let you know that we're Mississippi sisters, But when I heard you, I was listening to an interview that you did with Kristen Wagner at Alliance Defending Freedom, and you said, I'm from a town outside of Jackson. And I'm like, if anybody grew up in Mississippi, they can totally resonate with that "I'm from outside of" kind of town, because I grew up outside of Tupelo, which was 30 minutes from Tupelo, but nobody knows Baldwin, and that's where I grew up. But anyway, tell us about your small town. How many people is it? Is it the kind of everybody knows everybody sort of place?
Man, everybody knows everybody, and they know your grandma, your great grandpa. I mean, everybody knows everybody, and we have at the most 300 people in our town. Very, very secluded, in the middle of the woods. Can't go to the grocery store for just bread and milk because you're going to stop 15 times because you're going to see everybody there. So
Now, is it a several small towns come together for school, or how's that work?
It's comprised of Harrisville, Braxton, Pinola, and it might have some other little cities in there, but we're still only probably, I think, 500 students, even comprised of all those towns together. And that's kindergarten all the way to 8th grade for this division of the school. And then you would go to the high school in Mendenhall.
So this is for you guys, the local public school that Lydia attends. And so COVID happened, all schools shut down. Some schools have opened back up, and where I live in California, some of our schools were closed still all year long. So, but Lydia was able to go back to school, but the kids had to wear masks. And like Sarah said, Lydia decided to wear masks that had Jesus's name on the mask. And Lydia, maybe you can tell us where the story happened with the mask and what happened when you wore that mask to school.
Well, my school's named Simpson Central, and the first time I wore the mask, nothing happened. Well, a few more months later, at the computer lab teacher told me that I couldn't wear this type of mask.
So she came up and said the mask you were wearing, you weren't allowed to wear that mask. Did she tell you why you couldn't wear that?
No, ma'am.
Did she make you take it off right then and wear something different?
No, ma'am. She just told me.
Yeah.
Okay.
The principal is who ordered that later after she wore it again.
Okay, so Lydia, when you came home and told your mama, like, listen what happened today, what did, or maybe I'm asking you, Jennifer, what was your response? Like, what? Why would they do that? What was your first reaction?
The initial time with the computer lab teacher, she just got in the car. She's like, Mama, I said, I got bad news. I was like, what? What's bad? And she's like, I can't wear this mask. I was like, what? And she said, yeah, my computer lab teacher said I couldn't wear this type. And I was like, what you mean? She said, like the words on it. I was like, no, we see words all over masks. So I'm sitting here thinking, oh, this teacher was kind of convicted or something. She felt something on her heart when she saw Jesus' name. You know how that he put some little reminders out there, So I went home and I was looking through everything. I was like, I don't see anything that tells us what type of mask to wear, So I reached out to some parents and some of the people that actually work at the school, and they're like, no, there's nothing on there like that, So I sent her back in it.
So you actually did some homework to see if what was told to Lydia was actually true, that she's not allowed to wear any mask with the religious saying on it, is how it would be classified, right? And so you, from the literature that the school had put out on restrictions on masks, you saw that the mask she was wearing was okay with their rules. Is that right?
Yeah, because there was nothing. It just said that they had to wear a mask, and when there was no social distancing and while they're in the hallways, on the bus, just kind of specified those.
So, Lydia, were you nervous to walk back in with the mask on, or did you think maybe it was just that teacher?
The principal, she walked in the room and she winked and said my name and then left, and then the assistant teacher told me to wear this mask so no more trouble would happen about it.
Yeah, they swapped them out.
Okay, then now you're like, no, this is not just the one teacher being convicted. But walk us through what happened next. You had done your initial research, then walk us through what happened next.
Well, the principal called me and she's like, hey, we're going to have Lydia's mask changed out. We're going to have to take that one off. And she said, they can't wear any political or religious masks. And I was like, what? I was like, I'm going to need to see where this is because I've read the handbook. I've looked through all that. I don't know where that even exists, you know. So we're literally like, she has her handbook, I have my handbook, and we're flipping through the pages, and she's like, I know it's in here, you know, and we get to the dress code, and the only thing she could find, you know, she pointed me to something that referenced to drug culture and profanity and obscene things, you know, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but this has nothing to do with Jesus. And if y'all are going to do this, you're going to have to give me specifics. Like, you can't just do it, you know, just to do it.
Then did they give you specifics, or what happened after that?
She told me she was going to reach out to central office again and get the specifics.
But in the meantime, while she did that, Lydia couldn't wear the mask.
No.
Then, okay, somebody sent you something that they had doctored a little bit. Walk us through that. I can't remember which person it was.
Yeah. So I picked Lydia up, and after emailing and requesting them to put her mask back on, I still picked her up in the other mask. And so the next day I had contacted the assistant superintendent, Dr. Sanders, and he even verified at that point that it was not in the handbook and that it was in this restart plan that they had at the beginning of the school year. And he emailed me a copy of it, and when I'm looking at it, it had the specific wording saying no political or religious or obscene things. And so I'm just sitting there just like, what? How did I miss this? You know, because I would have had questions, you know, where does religion even fit in these categories, you know, with obscene things, you know. But so I really felt like God was like, hey, you know, you got to look a little further into this. There's more to this than what's right here and that's obvious. And so I actually I went on the district page, and although they didn't realize it was still up, the original document was still archived on their website. So when I pulled it up, I'm sitting here looking at two versions, the one that he sent me on the email, and then the version that was actually released at the beginning of the school year. And the only difference between those two versions was the verbiage about the type of mask that were to be worn for the political and religious masks. So then Lord's like, I ain't finished with you yet, Jennifer. He's like, there's more. And so the document that he sent me, I don't know if you realize when you send a document or you create a document, you know, there's all this data that's tied to it. And I pulled the metadata on the document that he had sent me, and literally he had modified that 30 minutes before he called me. I knew the application. He used PowerPoint 2016. It had his name on there, the date, the time, you name it, you know, right there. And I'm like, what in the world am I dealing with? You know, at this point, you know, you just don't know. And I feel like God was just like, hey, I mean, for him to put that on my heart and then the stuff actually be there, you know, it's just, that was mind blowing alone.
And
you
is
know,
that the moment that you kind of felt like, okay, I have to either make a choice to like really dig into this or just wear a different mask? Like, was that kind of the turning point for you?
I was pretty upset. I cried, and we actually had church that night, and I kind of reached out to my church about it all, and because it was just kind of unbelievable, you know, because you're sitting here thinking that these adults that have been put in charge of taking care of my kid when I can't be there, you know, we're not allowed on campus because of the COVID measures. So we have these adults there that are supposed to be an advocate and protect my child whenever I can't. and they're going to the extreme lengths that they're going to make her wrong in this situation. There was nothing wrong with her message. It was, if anything, it was positive in such a dark time, and to know that they would go to that extent, just, you're kind of like you said, you're kind of at this point, like, okay, do I try and figure out how to put them in private school, or, because your mind's going everywhere at that point, because you don't know if they'll go to that extent to lie, what other extent would they go to, and so I went and talked to my church about it, and they done a group message to the Baptist Association, and one of the pastors in there had actually recommended to contact ADF about it.
Yeah, so that's what's so stunning about this story, is that the kids are required to wear the mask. You guys weren't fighting that. Lydia was wearing her mask, and the kids were allowed to wear masks. Other kids had masks that had different words and messages on them, and that was okay. And so this isn't the type of thing where you were trying to go against the rules. Actually, the rules as they were stated, as you looked up, Lydia's mask was complying with the rules. And then you discover that now they're trying to change the rules in the midst of trying to get Lydia to stop wearing the mask, which is just stunning to hear.
And to make her feel bad, because she is like a rule follower. Like, she was even in daycare, like, she was the one that would be left at the front of the class to kind of oversee all the other kids, like to help the teacher, so it was almost like devastating to her that she was in trouble, and for it to have been over something like that, you're just like, no, I can't let that affect her, like, in that way, especially over Jesus. I mean,
well, it's so hard too, because, and we've Aaron and I are both parents as well, and it's hard when adults do the wrong thing, to talk your kids through that, because Lydia, I can tell you're a very respectful young lady. You are very respectful. You've been very respectful with us already, and I can tell that you are. And so I know that as a mom, we want our kids to treat adults respectfully, but at the same time, it's also okay. It's also okay to say adults handle things wrongly. So how have you guys walked through that tension?
Well, we try to tell her, that, they make mistakes too, and really you gotta own up to those mistakes, and some people don't as easily, and I just want her to know that, you're gonna come across that as she gets older, and I'm not able there to protect her, that she's gonna have to do the same thing. It's not easy to say anything, but if you allow it, when something wrong like this has occurred, and you just allow it, it's the little things that add up over time to big things. Like this year it would have been the mask, next year it would have been t-shirts, and then at some point you wouldn't even be able to say Jesus' name in the school, and then my grandkids and great grandkids can't do what they're called to do as Christians and share the gospel and say Jesus' name in public. So it's trying to give her a perspective of, while it seems like something small, and it could, we could have been like, it's just a mask, whatever, but it's not just a mask, maybe it should have been just a mask for them, we're always looking, what I mean? Like, Christians are always looked at as being the offended, or like we're being attacked, but really, why couldn't it have just been a mask for them? but they had to make it a big deal and single my child out about it, and we just can't. It's not little, because at some point it's going to be big, and the simple fact that it's even occurring like in the Bible Belt, out in the middle of nowhere, it's just, I personally never expected to experience or have to deal with it. And if I'm like, well, if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Jennifer, about we can mistakenly see some of these things as small things, but they actually, yeah, it's these small things that chip away, right, at our liberties, and these small things do actually make a statement, and especially to our kids. And that's why it makes so much sense that you would reach out to Alliance Defending Freedom. And for our listeners, if you haven't listened to our interview with Kristen Wagner, please go and do that, because you'll get even more information on what Alliance Defending Freedom does. But they really fight for religious liberty. And I think, maybe our listeners or people who might hear your story might mistakenly say or think what you're talking about. Oh, this is just a little thing, and why make it a big deal? And your point is so right, that it's like, who made the mass the issue? It certainly wasn't Lydia. It certainly wasn't you. And it was the school that was making the mass the issue. And and again, you guys were actually complying with what you were supposed to do. And it wasn't you who was making the case. Yeah. And so can you talk about I'd love to know, just in your community, how are you guys being received? Are you feeling supported within your small community? Because like you described, I mean, where I live in California, I hardly go anywhere and see people I know. But you guys are around people you know all the time, and I know you're involved in your church, and so have you guys felt the support of people around you?
For the most part, everybody's pretty much behind us on it. They don't really want to go on TV or nothing about it, but because people are kind of concerned, kind of like I was, initially. If they have kids that go to school or anything like that, they worry about the retaliation aspect of it, as well as the administrators and other teachers and everything. We've had a lot reach out privately, and they told us, they were like, look, I'll lose my job. This could happen, they were like, just know that we support y'all and we're praying for y'all, but we can't, go out and publicly state that, and really that's why we're in the shape we're in the nation. If you think about how many times people were worried about either a financial, a political, or some kind of retaliation, like losing their jobs or something, that they stay silent on issues that should have been brought to the table and discussed. And I'm hoping, as people, see people standing up, like one of ADF's recent cases with the teacher standing up against the school and the school board. I was like, man, that's amazing. I was like, this is a big win for teachers, and like Lydia, I'm hoping that her standing up will kind of make students and parents more likely to speak out on these issues and not just keep letting them slide by. And then our children and our grandchildren are going to have to deal with it.
Yeah, that's so true. It's not going to, we're just passing it on if we stay silent. We're just passing it on. Okay, Lydia, how have I'm sure some of your classmates have seen you on the news. Have they talked to you about that? Have you had any good conversations?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us about some of them, or is there one that sticks out in particular?
Um, well, one of my friends, she said they that they heard some of my stories, and that her sister has started reading the Bible again, and that she has too. And when some kids tell me questions that if I've ever if why they done that to to my family and to me, and abandoned the mask. Well, I told them that we haven't really known why they done that yet.
So, Lydia, I have to point out something that really struck me when I was listening to your story with Miss Kristen Wagner, and you said that you wanted to be a missionary. And I think in your mind, you were thinking when you grow up, but I hope you realize you're a missionary right where you are already.
Yes, ma'am.
That's so neat. I love that you're already having opportunities to speak truth to your friends. So, Lydia, we kind of heard from your mom a lot of the things that she's learning and that she's hoping the rest of America will learn too. But what are some things that you're learning throughout all of this?
That Jesus loves me, and that I'm safe, and that you should stand up for what you believe in and stand up for your rights.
That's good stuff.
Those are good lessons to learn. Okay, so Jennifer, can you just tell us at this point where the case is at, where you guys are at in all of this, and just to even give our listeners a sense of what we can be thinking of towards you guys, and just be aware of what's going on with you guys?
It's kind of at a standstill, waiting for court at this point. She was able to wear a mask at the end of the year, but I guess be praying more for the school administrators that are involved, to kind of soften their hearts and kind of see, like, hey, this all could have been resolved doing the right thing at the beginning. Apologize. You made a mistake, take responsibility for it. We're not after anybody. We just want what's right. And unfortunately, we had to go the legal route to get what was right out of this situation,
I'm glad you pointed that out, that you're not, so you have brought a suit against the school just so that Lydia have the freedom to wear the mask that she wants to wear.
Yeah, and that's it. Like, we're not out for nobody financially or nothing like that. I want them to do the right thing, and I want her to know that they need to do the right thing too. For all kids, and not just our school, but all the schools, that was the main reason I kept her there, because I was like, well, if we keep running, from these problems, then they're just going to keep spreading everywhere. So it's for all the children and adults alike.
Well, that's good to know, and just for our listeners to know that we can be praying for your case that's going on right now. And I know Alliance Defending Freedom will keep people updated on the cases that they're fighting for, and so our listeners can go to their website, to not only hear about your case but other cases of religious liberty that's going on around the country. Can you just tell us, maybe just as a family, ways that we can be praying for you guys, for your brothers, Lydia? I mean, I'm sure the whole family's kind of involved in this, right? So how can we be praying for your family?
That we can get through this problem, and that we all learn that we should stand up for rights and what we believe in.
And so Lydia, Sarah talked about, we heard that you wanted to be a missionary. So I'm curious where that came about in you. Are there stories of missionaries that your mom has read to you, or have you met missionaries and you've thought, this is what I want to do with my life? I'm curious how that came about in you.
Well, in the Bible, Paul, he was a missionary, and that made me think that I wanted to spread the gospel to kids. Well, my mom told me a related thing that was related to it, which was being a missionary, teaching all nations about the gospel.
That's good.
That's
Well,
great.
Jennifer and Lydia, thank you so much for spending time with us, and we will be praying for you and your family and Alliance Defending Freedom. I love your charge to all of us that it may seem like something small, but standing up for what we believe in and what is truth, and not giving in to these little lies that add up to be huge lies, is so important. And I know Alliance Defending Freedom, that's like their motto, except they probably say it way more articulately. But we just so appreciate your time with us, and you guys are both just lovely, and it's good to have you now as friends.
Oh, thank y'all so much for having us.
Thank you.